Allegiance. One nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. The prayer this afternoon will be offered by the good delegate representing Prince George's and Anne Arundel counties.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon. Let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, we ask you to give us all around peace in our mind, body, soul, and spirit. Please heal and remove everything that is causing stress, grief, and sorrow in our lives. In your name we ask. Amen.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 22nd, 2022.
Recognizing Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered. Petitions, memorials, and other papers.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to real quickly let the body know that my bride, Valerie, the future first family of Maryland, is here visiting me today in the gallery. Go ahead and stand. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Boy, it's wonderful to have the gallery open again. Thank you. I'd like to recognize one of our pages. She was unfortunately in the Senate today, but Liliana from Harford County. You may have recognized her if you're on Rules Committee. She gave great testimony, and it's wonderful to have high school students weighing in on this. So thanks. Good to see you, Lily.
Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 23. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 222, Baltimore City Board of License Commissioners licensee hours of operation and enforcement. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 16. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 19, Pharmacist Administration of Maintenance Injectable Medications, Treatment of Sexually Transmitted Infections. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of...
So ordered.
Thank you. The amendments conform the Senate bill to its cross-file as it passed the House. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 37, Health Occupation State Board of Massage Therapy Examiners requiring license to practice and other revisions. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendment adopts the House position on the educational requirements. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 103, State Board of Examiners for Audiologists, Hearing Aid Dispensers, Speech Language Pathologist, and Music Therapist. Revisions. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 123727.
Amendment number 1.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the body, this is a straightforward attempt to address something that many health professionals in Maryland believe was a complete oversight last year, where instead of an opt-in training requirement, instead implicit bias training has been mandated on every doctor, nurse, or health practitioner in Maryland in order to maintain their licensure. This has blown my email box up. It has created consternation among many, many different practitioners. And all this amendment does is simply strike the mandate that they are still allowed to practice medicine in Maryland at a time after 2 years of a crunch where they serve the people many times in double shifts. And now they're looking at having to go through at their own expense additional implicit bias training in order to maintain a license that they've been provided for years without any complaints on their record. I think we can all agree that if there are complaints, that there should be opportunities for that individual to be reprimanded and properly have training that might be necessary. But this applies to people without any complaints, and that's not appropriate. So much be the reading of the amendment, Madam Speaker. I'd move the amendment.
Still ordered, a little backwards in the timing, but floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to ask the body to resist this amendment. This implicit bias training. Actually, we had this conversation at my house. My husband is a chiropractor, and he mentioned this to me as well. And it's a great thing. We've talked about this on the floor earlier this session. Implicit bias is a real thing, and we chose to do this as a policy decision, and it's important. Yeah, this is a requirement that we put in law last year, and the body chose to do this. So I would urge the body to resist this amendment.
The maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I don't believe that we had adequate opportunity last year to intricately go over this part of the bill that was actually buried deep in a bill. And it does, go hearken to times where division was, the sad norm, and it shouldn't remain that way in Maryland. We should instead be embracing one another, embracing our diversity, embracing our experiences, and not immediately creating suspicion on everyone and forcing them, in order to be a professional in Maryland, to go through training that includes microaggressions, things such as, and I'm just reading from the training that's been required now of physicians. We're talking about every doctor and health practitioner in Maryland, including things such as unpacking whiteness and the confronting colorblindness and confronting neutrality. Now, confronting colorblindness is a problem, Madam Speaker, because one of the great facts of history is that in Plessy versus Ferguson, the dissent in that case, Justice Harlan, said that we are equal before God, and we must be treated that way. And his words became law. And so now to reverse that and put a requirement that divides us is just inappropriate. And I know that physicians all over the state would ask for the opportunity to have this opted out, and that's what this amendment does. So I'd move the amendment.
Floor leader.
Madam Speaker, I would just again urge the body to resist the amendment. This would be obviously the subject of a different bill. This is a cleanup bill having to do with a very important board, and we need to keep this bill as it is. So I urge you to resist this amendment, and I will just make sure the body knows this is a one-time online training for a very important subject. Thank you.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, excuse me. I'm tired.
Roll call, Madam Speaker.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker,
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 120, acupuncture licensure requirements, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 164, insurance annuities non-forfeiture interest rate, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 173, health insurance nonprofit health service plan, board of directors, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 306, dental hygienist consultation requirements, healthcare practitioners, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 317, state government notarial acts, fees, and use of communication technology, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 353, health insurance prescription insulin drugs, limits on co-payment and co-insurance, Insulin Cost Reduction Act, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 365, state government Maryland Veterans Commission membership, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 386, interstate medical licensure compact, sunset extension and reporting, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 446, public safety, fire, rescue, or emergency medical services entities, peer support programs, favorable.
Question for the House is adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 461, State Finance and Procurement Procedures and Pricing and Selection Committee for Preferred Providers. Favor the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Moves must be considered the reading amendments. Amendment conforms the bill to the House bill. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is the adoption of the favorable report as adopted. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 527, Elderly Individuals, Howard County and Montgomery County Adult Day Health Care Services Pilot Program and Task Force, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 531, Maryland Health Care Commission Assisted Living Program Study, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 611, State Board of Dental Examiners Training and Disciplinary Processes, revisions, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So
The
ordered.
amendment is technical. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 626, Maryland Loan Assistance Repayment Program for Physicians and Physician Assistants, alterations, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 834, Health Insurance Two-Sided Incentive Arrangements and Capitated Payments, authorization, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Committee on Health and Government Operations, report number 17. Clerk, read first bill.
Senate Bill 5, General Provisions, Commemorative Days, Tuskegee Airmen Commemoration Day, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 62, Pharmacists Aids for the Cessation of Tobacco Product Use, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the
So ordered.
amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 defines the term nicotine replacement therapy medication and incorporates it throughout the bill. Move the amendments.
Question for the House, the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 144, Health Authorization to Prescribe and Administer Abdulin, repeal, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 487, Procurement Minority Business Enterprises, revisions, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 607, Health Equity Resource Communities, modifications, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 654, Veterans Affairs, Communications Outreach and Advocacy Program, Veterans Advocacy and Education Act, favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Move so much be considered the reading amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment is technical. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 917, Healthcare Facilities Health Services Cost Review Commission User Fee Assessment. Favorable.
The question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 978, Garrett County Memorial Hospital Lease Authorization and Alterations to Board of Governors. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 22. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 93, Tax Credits, Employment of Individuals with Disabilities. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered to pass for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 109, Vehicle Excise Tax Exemption, Active Duty Military. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 272, Disclosure of Tax Information, Fraud Identification, Prevention, or Response. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 369, Income Tax Maryland Earned Income Tax Credit Assistance Program for Low-Income Families. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment conforms a reporting date to its cross file. Move the amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment has been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 477, Office of the Comptroller, Legal Division, and Private Letter Ruling Procedures. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendment conforms the bill to its cross file, House Bill 366, by requiring a person requesting a private letter ruling to include in the request a statement as to whether the person is the subject of an ongoing tax matter, and clarifying the circumstances under which the comptroller may refuse to issue a private letter ruling. Move the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 23. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 316, Sales and Use Tax, Diapers and Baby Products Exemption. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
The amendments exempt the sale of baby wipes and diaper rash cream from the sales and use tax. Move the committee amendment.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 405, Retirement Tax Elimination Act of 2022. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
The amendments conform the bill to House Bill 1468, which passed unanimously this morning. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now, adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed. Passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 488, Sales and Use Tax, Medical Devices and Products Exemption, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report has been adopted. Question now is it's adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 571, Sales and Use Tax, Oral Hygiene Products Exemption, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 598, Income Tax Work Opportunity Tax Credit, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the call. There being 135 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading House Bills number 99. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 1050, Prince George's County Alcoholic Beverages Licenses Limits.
Is on third reading and final passing. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 133 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1050, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1441, Anne Arundel County School Vehicles Duration of Operation.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1441, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My button did not work on House Bill 1050. I'd like to be recorded in the green.
Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 11. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 6, Landlord and Tenant Residential Leases, Tenant Rights and Protection, Tenant Protection Act of 2022.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? And is there any amendments to the bill to its title? If not, are you getting up? Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm tired too. Could the floor leader please rise for a question?
Floor leader.
With pleasure.
Okay, is this the House version of the, or the Senate version of the House bill that you and I talked about?
It is, and is in exactly the same form.
Okay, just for my edification, could you just tell me what the bill does?
Yeah, absolutely. So it does basically four principal things. Number one, it provides a little bit more transparency with regard to ratio utility billing systems. Number two, it expands protections for victims of abuse so that they can get out of dangerous situations and break their lease terms early. Number 3, it allows tenant organizations access once a month to any common areas in a building for purposes of a tenant organization meeting. And then finally, it requires landlords, when they withhold a security deposit, to provide documentation along with that. And I would just note that there's no opposition, and we worked hand in glove with both tenant advocates and landlord organizations to craft this consensus product.
All right. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Are there any other debate on this bill? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 107 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 6, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 181, Homeowners Property Tax Credit, Application Filing Deadline Extension.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 181, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 197, Homestead Property Tax Credit Program, retroactive qualification and calculation of the credit.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 197, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 201, State Department of Assessments and Taxation, Property Appraisal Aids, and Record Retention, Microfilm to Digital Act of 2022.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 201, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 541, Natural Resources, Maryland Park Service and State Parks Alterations, Great Maryland Outdoors Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 541, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 12. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 204, State Libraries, Maryland State Library Board membership.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 204, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 349, Baltimore County Property Tax Credit for Homeowners who have suffered a hardship.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded the vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 349, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 539, Anne Arundel County Special Taxing Districts Exemptions.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 539, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 708, Maryland Department of Health, Office of the Inspector General.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 106 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 708, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third
Madam
reading,
Speaker.
Senate Bills number 14.
Madam Speaker, I'm sorry.
Yes.
My button didn't work on SB 541. I'd like to be recorded in the green.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Madam Speaker, my button didn't work. I'm sorry, vote change on HB 1050. Excused.
Any other vote changes? Okay. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 14. The clerk will read the
Senate Bill 1012, Congressional Districting Plan.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any
Madam
debate?
Speaker.
I don't know who got up first. Gentleman
I have
from
it.
Cal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Madam Speaker, I have some questions for the floor leader.
Madam Speaker.
Or Majority Leader.
Thank you.
Yes. So my understanding is this is a new congressional districting plan for the state of Maryland. Is that correct?
That's as the title says, yes.
So a couple of months ago, we passed a bill for congressional redistricting, and now we have a new bill, correct?
Yes.
And so a couple of months ago when we passed that bill, I got up and talked about, and so did so many other members of the Republican caucus, about how there was extreme partisan gerrymandering built into the bill. And it appears to me that the judge last week, Judge Battaglia, agreed with us. Is that correct?
The judge applied to congressional districting for the first time in a court decision that I know of the standards set in the Maryland State Constitution, which had previously been interpreted to only apply to state legislative districts.
So the judge said that this map was the result of extreme partisan gerrymandering. That's what the judge said. So my question for you is, when the judge made that ruling last week, that meant that there had to be some new maps drawn. My question for you is, when were those new maps drawn?
The decision came down on Friday. The new maps were drawn over the weekend and introduced in order to meet the timeline set by the court for the establishment of maps.
Who drew the maps?
The presiding officers asked the Department of Legislative Services and legislative staff in consultation with the Office of the Attorney General to ensure that the new maps complied with the judge's decision.
Were there any Republicans present?
Not that I know of.
Given the ruling by Judge Battaglia, why were there not Republicans present during drawing the maps when the judge said that the maps that you folks drew the last time were the result of extreme partisan gerrymandering?
Again, the maps were drawn by staff, and they were drawn by staff as...
You said presiding officers were present.
No, I did not say that.
You did not say that. So who was present drawing the maps?
As I said, legislative staff was asked to draw the maps in consultation with the Office of the Attorney General to ensure compliance with the judge's decision.
And so no one from the Republican caucus was invited?
No member of the Democratic caucus was either.
Okay. And how was the public supposed to know about these maps? How were they supposed to look at the maps and vet the maps?
As soon as they were introduced, they were made public on the General Assembly website and have been since then shared on media platforms, frankly, around the state and the country.
And was there a hearing in the Senate?
There was a hearing in, yes.
Was there a hearing in the House?
Yes.
I don't remember there being a hearing in the House. I remember there being one hearing.
There was a hearing.
There's a joint hearing.
Yes.
But we don't have joint hearings for other bills, right?
We have joint hearings regularly.
So you thought that made a lot of sense given what the judge ruled? That's just an honest question. I mean, given the given what the judge ruled, you would think that there would be a little bit more transparency, that both bodies would have an opportunity to have a hearing separately.
We had a joint hearing.
So you had a joint hearing. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the answer to those questions. Madam Speaker, on the bill, since we're on third reading on this bill. A couple of months ago, I stood up, and so did the members of this caucus, the Republican caucus, and said the following: gerrymandering is cheating. And Judge Battaglia agreed that the maps that were drawn with the intent to cheat, period. And gerrymandering, which is cheating, results in extremism. And I heard the same stuff over here 2 months ago. Because the citizens of this state want a fair deal so that they get to choose their representatives rather than the representatives getting to choose the citizens who vote for them. The Republican caucus and the citizens of this state deserve to have fair maps that are represented in a way that they have an opportunity to be heard. And the judge underscored the fact that what we did a couple of months ago in this body was wrong. And my sense is, by looking at these maps, we're doing it all over again. The maps are prettier, but they still violate the Constitution of Maryland. They still are engaging, the maps are, in extreme gerrymandering. And I can only hope, and I pray, believe me, that our courts in this state will look at these maps and find the same thing again, which is what we see in the Republican caucus, which is, once again, cheating is occurring. And for all those reasons, I will not be voting for these maps. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I gotta switch to my right hand. I'm better right-handed. I won't vote for today's maps, although I do appreciate the efforts that were taken, and I don't have any particular heartburn as to the process that occurred. Having litigated for my entire adult life, it's very difficult when someone tells you to do something on Friday and that you have to have it done by the following Wednesday. It doesn't lend itself to the type of process that all of us would probably prefer to have. But I'll try to be brief. I'm not an expert with respect to compactness. If you read Judge Battaglia's opinion, there's a variety of I don't even know what they mean. The Rioch score, the Polsby-Popper score, the inverse Schwarzberg score, and the convex Hull score, which political scientists and statisticians use to develop methodologies for what is or is not a compact map. I couldn't tell you what in the world any of those things mean. So I'll tell you that looking at the map, it appears to be more compact. As my friend said, it looks more quote-unquote pretty. But I don't know what a court will ultimately determine if it's more compact or not under those statistical analyses. But I do know this. We talked an awful lot about partisanship and how it affects gerrymandering beyond the statistical. And I'm just going to read what Judge Battaglia said, and I'm going to tell you what I think many of you know. Judge Battaglia is not a Republican. I don't know what she's actually registered as today, but I know that when she taught me in law school at the University of Maryland, she was the United States Attorney for Maryland, appointed by President Bill Clinton. I know that prior to that, she was the Chief of Staff to Senator Barbara Mikulski. I know that she was appointed to the Court of Appeals by a Democratic judge, or Democratic governor, I'm sorry. I doubt that her positions come from a position of partisanship on behalf of my party in any way. But she did say, and I'm quoting, with regard to Article 7 of the Maryland Declaration of Rights, that's the free elections clause that we talked about here in December that said elections must be free under Maryland law and how that would be interpreted. Her words, the 2021 Congressional plan was drawn with partisanship as a predominant interest to the exclusion of traditional redistricting criteria accomplished by the party in power to suppress the voice of Republican votes. The right for all voters of particular political participation in congressional elections was violated by the 2021 plan in its own right. The same rationale holds true for the violation of Article 40 of the Maryland Declaration of Rights, the free speech article, which requires strict scrutiny analysis. In many respects, all of the testimony in this case supports the notions that the voice of Republican voters was diluted and their right to vote and be heard with the efficacy of a Democratic voter was diminished. No compelling reason for the dilution and diminution was ever adduced by the state. And finally, it is axiomatic that popular sovereignty, these are her words, is the paramount consideration in a Republican democratic government. I'm reading it. Small r, small d. Not us fighting each other, us doing the right thing for everyone in a Republican democratic government. The limitation of the undue extension of power by any branch of government must be exercised to ensure that the will of the people was heard, no matter under which political placard those governing reside. The 2021 Congressional Plan is unconstitutional and subverts that will of those governed. I cannot say it more eloquently than that. What we did was the product of partisan gerrymandering, and I believe, unfortunately, that what we continue to do in this bill will meet the same result potentially. I just ask you in closing in this, when we look around this chamber, when I came here in 2014 and sat in the back, we had 50 Republican members and 91 Democratic members. It was less than 2 to 1. Less than 2 to 1, the will of the people expressed across the state. It's now a little bit more than 2 to 1. Your team did a little bit better in 2018. Congratulations. But what I would suggest to you is there's no analysis whatsoever where Maryland is a 7 to 1 Democratic state. There is no analysis whatsoever that it's even really a 3 to 1, 6 to 2 Democratic state. It is a Democratic state. I said it in December, I'll say it again, you will win. You will obtain the majority of seats, whether in Congress or in our legislature. You don't have to resort to partisan gerrymandering to win. And all it does, as recognized by a very able jurist from a very impartial perspective, all it does is it inflames people because they think that you're taking away their right to speak. And that's something fundamental to all of us. That's the only reason I'm voting against this plan. I think it was worked to the best of the ability by people who, of good faith. It's a court case now. We'll see where it goes from here. But I think that those considerations, that language, needs to be appreciated by everyone who has the solemn responsibility to serve in this legislature. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A brief question for the floor leader, please.
Majority Leader.
Thank you.
Thank you. So sorry to belabor this. I have a question. So when we went through the different processes of the different groups who drew these maps initially, one of the big concerns of Eastern Baltimore County was that the peninsulas of Greater Dundalk and Greater Essex had been split. Eastern Baltimore County was overwhelmingly opposed to that. In fact, over 800 people spoke up. And through the Citizens Redistricting Commission, the process allowed people to participate. And they had it was initially drawn, they had drawn Dundalk into the city, and they had drawn Essex up to Aberdeen. And for those of you who don't know the geography, that is quite a stretch. These maps, unfortunately, we're going back to that. Now we're redrawing Dundalk into the city, and they redrew Essex into Tawnytown. So can you tell me why that was done under this map?
So just looking at the map, in order to comply with compactness, the first district now no longer crosses the bay at the Bay Bridge. And then in order to keep the district compact, you have to head up and around Cecil all the way through Hartford, which is now contained entirely within the first. And the most compact district would essentially take the eastern border region of Baltimore County into the first.
But what you didn't do, you didn't make it a regional issue. You didn't keep Eastern Baltimore, Baltimore County, and Baltimore City together. You basically went completely around it. After so many people had spoken up so clearly, we did the exact opposite. And when we talk about these issues, we've talked about this year, municipal wastewater treatment plants, the mail. These aren't necessarily partisan issues or even ideological issues. But I think problems like this are why you can't get focus and you can't get representation. So why would we not? How did it come to be that you've so disenfranchised people who so clearly did not want this?
So that's not a question. You're making an argument. You're welcome to make an argument. If you have a question, I'm happy to answer it, but that wasn't a question.
I'll ask a question. Who decided to divide eastern Baltimore County? Why was that part of, there could have been a million different ways we drew this. Why was that particular change adopted under this bill?
Again, the map was drawn by legislative staff. I would presume that they were guided by the judge's decision, which prioritized compactness.
So the staff was completely responsible for making the decisions, and nobody requested that. The staff just drew it that way.
As I explained earlier, it was drawn by staff in consultation with the Office of the Attorney General, which provided legal counsel.
So if there's anyone, the Office of the Attorney General directed staff.
They didn't direct staff, they provided legal advice.
Okay. All right, I appreciate the questions. Very briefly on the bill, Madam Speaker. Eastern Baltimore County did not want this. Eastern Baltimore County frequently feels it's under attack. And what this bill is saying is that you'll never have representation. That's why I'll be voting no today.
Gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Back in December, I recall saying in the legislature that anytime we go to court, whether it's in the business setting, a personal grievance, anytime you take a situation like that to court, everybody loses. You hand the decision to a third party to fix something that could and should have been worked out together. And the appeal at the time, back in December, was if we did that, if we worked together, we avoid the conflict that's to come. Well, here we are today resolving conflict that was foreseen. It was anticipated because, let me just say to you, as I was looking at the maps that were being drawn back in December that we voted on, as a voter in the 1st Congressional District, I was looking at the debate about how we're going to take the Bay Bridge, and because of 5 lanes of road, we're going to connect Anne Arundel County and the city of Annapolis to towns like Hebron, Hurlock, Ocean City, Snow Hill, Delmar. And something felt entirely inappropriate about that. Now, I agreed and joined as a plaintiff in the lawsuit that came forward primarily for the reason that for the 1st Congressional District, that took away, in my opinion, a fair election for the person that's going to represent our members, our voters, our citizens in Washington, D.C. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I didn't surely make any case other than to say, as a member of the 1st Congressional District, I'm aggrieved and I'm frustrated, and I was willing to stand in that particular setting. So here we are today, and I would say again that we are going to hand a map to a judge. I'm not sure that that had to be the outcome here. I'm not necessarily clear as to what this would have looked like, but from the gentleman from Calvert, there were multiple paths to get to a conclusion. But let me just say where we are today is we are demonstrating to the voters in the state of Maryland a particular degree of dysfunction, where one could expect, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, that the legislature, not necessarily the Democrat Party and not necessarily the Republican Party, but that the legislature creates a map that engenders a free and fair election. And I think, once again, we've missed the mark in that respect. And I stand and will tell you that I'm going to oppose this map. And hopefully at some point, I'm 49 years old, but hopefully at some point in my lifetime, not only in Maryland, but throughout the country, we find a better, more bipartisan pathway to redrawing districts. My last comment on this is Governor Larry Hogan, a Republican, won more than 50% of the votes in the state of Maryland. That is a Republican that won 50% of the votes in our state. Republicans can and do win elections. And so to the minority leader who's saying we're not a 8-0 state when it comes to congressional representation, he's right. We're not even a 7-1 state. And so the question is, how do we get to a point where voters in our state will vote for a Republican governor, yet in Washington, D.C., in the People's Chamber, in the House of Representatives, we don't have a reflective vote in that legislative body. And that's why in voting against this bill, we are saying not only to the voters in the state of Maryland that we still didn't get it right, but once again, we're going to hand it to a judge who, in my humble opinion, would have every reason to look at this and say, did we do everything that it was that I said in my order and comply with those principles in the map-making process? I say no to that, and I'm going to vote no on this bill.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from St. Mary's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question for the floor leader.
Madam Speaker.
Good afternoon.
Turn later.
You were talking about earlier about the people that developed the map. Are these the same DLS staff that developed this map, that developed the LRAC maps that we passed in December?
I'm not sure if it's the exact same folks.
I mean, it's the same people, same software, same, who drew them?
I would assume so, but DLS is a relatively large organization.
Okay, well, when you say DLS staff developed this, I mean, does that include any staff members that work directly for the Speaker or the House or the Senate President?
I believe so. They're involved in almost every bill that gets passed.
Okay, so who appoints the head of DLS?
I believe it's the presiding officers.
The presiding officers. So I mean, you can kind of say that DLS works for the presiding officers, right?
The Department of Legislative Services and the fantastic people that work in it work for the people of Maryland.
So during this whole process, you know, Friday, the judge says we need new maps by Wednesday. We had a focus group, that went from like May to November, the Citizens Redistricting Commissions. Why were those maps never considered?
Those maps were drawn up and they were among dozens of maps that were submitted to the legislature, but they were drawn up prior to the judge's decision.
But those maps had citizens' input. How many citizens had input on this map?
This map was in the public hearing, you mean?
Yeah.
We had
you had a public hearing. I mean, you only drove it since Friday. Yeah.
3 people that I recall that showed up to testify, all of whom were Republican activists.
But how many citizens participated in the actual process of drawing it? Like weighed in on the district. We just had a delegate speak about Dundalk being divided up.
As the minority leader acknowledged, the court required us to draw a new map in 5 days. I think, given more time, the process might have looked different, but we had 5 days to draw a map.
But we already had a map. I would call it a backup map that's been focus group by the citizens. So you had a Citizens Redistricting Commission. Why was that never considered a viable option when we had so many citizens input into it?
We had, as I said, many maps submitted to the legislature.
Okay, thank you. On the bill, Madam Speaker, on the bill.
On the bill.
Brief history lesson in redistricting. You know, Maryland was represented, balanced in our congressional delegation for years. You look pre-2000, we had 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats. Redistricting happens and the delegation goes 6-2. After the 2010 redistricting, the delegation goes to 7-1 with Congressman Andy Harris being the only Republican. Now here's the interesting thought on that is those last maps that we currently have today that were in effect at the last election, we thought those were gerrymandered. And a legal case brought up former Governor O'Malley, who admitted under deposition that those maps were drawn for political purposes, something that we've been saying for about a decade. Just on Friday, Judge Battaglia said this plan is an outlier and it's produced in extreme partisan gerrymandering. No kidding. And now we have a map that I would say also was produced for pure partisan gerrymandering. Aesthetically, it does look a little better, but you got to wonder, Carroll County that serves and sits over in this part of the chamber, it's always been in the Western Maryland delegation. And for some reason, they're in District 2 and not in District 6. It looks like District 6 creeps down into Montgomery County, some heavily populated blue areas. I don't really know if that's an area of like-mindedness. You look down where we're at in District 5, you got St. Mary's all the way up to Largo, Fort Meade. Again, these maps look to be gerrymandered. Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution states plainly, the House of Representatives shall be chosen by the people, not by politicians and not by DLS staff working for politicians in the middle of the night. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from, where's she from? Montgomery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm new to this chamber, but I'm not new to Maryland, and I'm not new to District 15. Since I've lived in District 15 for more than 30 years, the district I currently represent. And in that time, I was in the 8th Congressional District for a while. Then I was in the 6th Congressional District for a while. And now I'm back under this map. I would be in the 8th Congressional District again. And I just want to say that, you know, the changes, I appreciate not only the expediency with which this map was drawn, but the professionalism that was shown in drawing it and the consideration of the judge's ruling. I know that it was a new standard, and you're also balancing population differences, and my understanding is that you can only have a variance of like 1 voter in these districts, and so it makes it really difficult. So I do appreciate the work that's been done on this by the legislative staff and others who worked on this. And another thing that I'm pleased about with respect to this map and what I've learned living in the district that I live in and the part of Montgomery County and the part of the state that I live in is that it keeps a community of interest between the northern part of Montgomery County and the northern part of my district, which is joined with Frederick County by that important corridor of I-270 where the development is. It keeps that together. And it also keeps together the western part of my district, which is the rural part of Montgomery County and the agricultural reserve along with the rural part of Frederick County. So I'm very pleased, even though that my district is changing, my congressional district is changing, I'm very pleased that this map does that because I think those community of interests are very important to preserve. For those reasons and others, I will be supporting this map. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we had a little history lesson 20 years ago. Some of you didn't live here. Some of you might have been too young to really be paying attention. But 20 years ago, we did have a 4-4 representation in Washington, D.C., 50-50. And then, as my friend from St. Mary's said, it was gerrymandered to be a 6-2, then a 7-1. But over the last 20 years, Maryland has elected 2 of our last 3 governors from the Republican Party. 16 years with Republican governors and 8 years with Democratic governors. Maryland is truly a middle temperament state, just like Governor Hogan says. The map passed in December was clearly unconstitutional. And Judge Battaglia's ruling was very strong. If you have not read the last 6 pages, her summary, I encourage you to do that. It was not a mild reprimand on a map that scored an F on Princeton Project scorecard. It was most likely the most gerrymandered state in the entire nation. I mean, it was kind of artful. District 3 was a pterodactyl lying prostrate on its back and somehow turned into a Tyrannosaurus beast. So I I give credit to whoever drew that, those dinosaur creatures, but that is not fair redistricting. So now we have this new map before us, hastily drawn, without any input from a Republican. Listen, they could have formed a bipartisan work group. It had to be done quickly, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't have been done in a bipartisan way. This map barely gives lip service to Judge Battaglia's ruling. It doesn't address the gross incompactness of the unconstitutional map, but is still an outlier. It is still an extreme gerrymander. The judge ruled it is extraordinarily unlikely that a map like the unconstitutional one could have been produced without extreme partisan gerrymandering. I would say this one too. The judge said the unconstitutional map was drawn with, quote, partisanship as a predominant intent, accomplished by the party in power to suppress the voice of Republican voters. The right for all votes of political participation in congressional elections, as protected by Article 7, was violated. I would say the same for this map before us. I am voting no. You can put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. You can wrap an old fish in a piece of paper, and it still stinks.
Madam Speaker.
Young lady from Carroll.
I can't top that. I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have said, and I thank everyone for listening to us. But it has been frustrating in our counties, and our people care too about who represents them. In Carroll County, if you when you get on the elevator in the House Office Building today, look at the board and look and try to find where I am, and it says Western Maryland. I'm not there under Carroll County, I'm under Western Maryland. We are all lumped together, Western Maryland, all the way from Carroll County to Garrett County, and that's what we've been considered down here in the House Office Building. We're part of Western Maryland delegation. We don't have, we don't have the special spot on the board. And we always were represented by someone from Western Maryland for a very long time who came to our district, and we had the same values, and we thought we were well represented. When the redistricting happened a number of years ago, they split Carroll County in half, and half of us were in District 1, and half of us, my half, was represented by someone from Tacoma Park. Nothing against Tacoma Park, but I will tell you that the people in Carroll County have very little same interests of our representative, who has never, I've never seen in my county ever in all the years they've been there. So we're sort of like just an afterthought. And we feel like we deserve representation too. Now this new map here today at least keeps Carroll County mostly together, but it still takes a piece of Carroll County and brings them into Montgomery County unnecessarily. Our county wants to be kept together, and we want to be part of Western Maryland with the folks that, that represent us. And currently, we're divided mostly with Baltimore County, the Snakes, all the way over into, I don't know if it's Dundalk or District 2. And it seems to me that this could have been done nicer and neater, and just remember that our county deserves representation too, and we've been split for the last 8 years, I believe. Unnecessarily, this does make it better, but it separates us from our Western Maryland counterparts, and it doesn't need to be that way. I hope the heck that the judge fixes this. The citizens map, I've had the billboard up in my office of the citizens map that was created after hundreds and hundreds of people weighed in on it. I weighed in on it. And then I look at the map that we had before us earlier that the judge threw out, and even my hardest core left friends looked at that map and said, this is really bad. I think that they'd look at this map and say it's slightly better, but it's not what it could be. It's not what it could be for good representation. And that's all we're looking for. And the citizens map, it's a good map. So I'm hoping that we end up with a map that is clear, it keeps all the counties together, it keeps Baltimore together, and it gives good representation. And that's what I think we're looking for. And then let the chips fall where they may, whether it's R or D or purple. I think it just is a good representation of the state of Maryland. So I will be voting against this, and let's hope the judge pushes us to get it really right. And I agree with her. I couldn't have written it better, what she wrote in her ruling. I think she really does. Throughout our whole country, we've got to get this straight. And I think we'd like to be the leaders here in Maryland. I say leaders, we were followers. I hope we're going to be the leaders. So I'm going to get one more red vote, and let's hope that the next time we vote on a map, that it'll be a good one. Thank you.
Gentleman from Washington County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've listened to the debate. I've heard lots of concerns, people talking about really concerns that the map we have, the process, that there were no citizens involved, no Republicans involved, done in the dead of night over the weekends. We also have concerns that this map that we're about to vote on is just like the last one that was overturned by the judge, that it's really just a partisan map with the primary interest on favoring one party. That's not the way to draw maps. You heard people say that they wouldn't have fair maps, that the people in Maryland expect to have fair representation. Judge Battaglia had faith in this legislature. She wrote that she gave this legislature a second chance. That's why she sent it back to us. Unfortunately, the map in SB 1012 doesn't do that. It's a highly partisan map. No one commented on it. No one even saw what was happening in the dead of night. So I'm going to give us an opportunity right now to redeem ourselves, to vote for a map that we could all support. And so, Madam Speaker, I have at the desk an amendment, SB 1012 213922/1.
Amendment number 1.
Thank you.
So much be considered?
No, I'm going to read the first part of the amendment.
No, so much be considered, or reading on the amendment?
All right, so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
So the preamble, it talks about, whereas the decennial census mandated under Article 1, Section 2 of the United States Constitution informs the reapportionment and redistricting process, with the last census occurring in 2020. And whereas each state is allowed to adopt a congressional redistricting process that applies to its particular needs, and whereas free and fair elections are the right of every citizen in the United States, and whereas the governor established the Maryland Citizens Redistricting Commission, a balanced commission consisting of equal numbers of non-legislature Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated voters, for the purpose of creating a congressional districting plan that is free from political influence, and to the extent practical, respects natural boundaries of political subdivisions, and provides the communities with a voice while respecting the principle of one person, one vote. And whereas the Congressional Redistricting Plan prepared by the Maryland Citizens Redistricting Commission will enable a larger number of Marylanders to fully participate in the choosing of their representatives. Now, therefore, and then I'm not going to read the actual number of pages that goes through redoing it, but this is simply the Maryland Commission's redistricting map. And I would encourage a yes vote for this map. This is something we should all be able to agree on. This would be fair for Marylanders. And this would allow our legislature to redeem ourselves. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would ask the body to resist this amendment. We've actually already considered it once this session. We had a separate bill that was introduced about it. And not speaking about the individual members that served on the commission, but this commission was appointed by a partisan elected official. It consisted of 9 members giving equal weight to Democrats, Republicans, and independents, even though those are not the proportions of voters in the state. And it was staffed by partisan political appointees of that partisan elected official. So I would ask the body to once again reject this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Young lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So the complaint about this map was that it was appointed by the governor. He obviously went out of his way to appoint people from all different political persuasions. But the maps in its current form, everyone that touched it was also appointed or put in place by only one party, the majority party. So the argument really doesn't hold water. Not even close. It's so porous. We have an opportunity to vote right now on a map that did consider input from many, many thousands of fellow citizens from Maryland. The map that we have put forward today did not do that. It barely had time. The people in my district didn't even know what the judge's ruling was by the time this map was already rolling out. They didn't even have time to think about the map and to sign up to testify against it. And if we had done a good job the first time, it wouldn't have been on such a short time frame. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're back again.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Washington County.
I would just encourage, this is our second chance. Let's vote yes on this amendment. Thank you.
On the amendment,
Madam Speaker? Could I,
gentlelady from Hartford.
thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I ask the Majority Leader a couple questions?
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
This is kind of just to discuss what, on the amendment, but no, I'm sorry,
Are you
Madam Chair. I
speaking on
wanted to
the
talk
amendment?
about the bill, so I'll wait till this gets resolved. I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. Sorry.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker,
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the floor leader rise for some questions, please?
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I looked at this map, and I'm just curious. I needed some questions answered. Was compactness, I know, was one of the reasons this had to be redrawn, but likeness of communities, was that considered at all?
Sorry, what was what considered?
Communities that had the same...
Communities of interest?
Right.
That is a consideration, but as you know, as the judge added more criteria that we had to meet, you can't meet every possible criterion all at once. So, the primary criterion in drawing this map and in conformance not only with this decision but with previous federal court decisions was meeting the requirements of the Voting Rights Act, ensuring compactness, and trying to reduce the crossing of county and municipal boundaries.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious, can you please explain to me how Randallstown would have any likeness to do with Dundalk?
So the judge's order applied standards in the Maryland Constitution that limit county crossings. And because those two communities are in the same county, it was one of the results of the judge's order.
Okay, what about Arbutus? That, I know that's Baltimore County. What about Anne Arundel County?
What about Anne Arundel County?
The map actually goes into Anne Arundel County, goes across the Key Bridge. Let me rephrase that. The 7th Congressional map that's shown on the new map that we're voting on actually shows Anne Arundel County including in this.
Under this map, there are only 2 congressional districts now in Anne Arundel County. They're the 3rd and it's the 5th, I think, the Southern Maryland District.
Okay. A couple more questions, and I don't want to... if you look at how this was drawn, it was drawn and went right across Back River Neck Bridge, dividing Essex and Dundalk completely. And we've been together forever. We have the same type of communities. We have the same kind of concerns. And I was just wondering why they did that.
I think your complaint is with compactness then, because the districts as drawn here are more compact than the districts would be if they were drawn in the way you suggest.
Right. Well, one other thing I just wanted to point out. Roland Park was actually drawn out, which I really thought was funny. I mean, it was just, I'm just pointing that out. They could have actually went across, I believe it's Walker Avenue, and made a pretty decent district and included Roland Park in this district.
Yes.
From what I understand, Roland Park's mainly Republicans.
I don't know the political makeup of Roland Park. My understanding of why that was done was to ensure that the 7th District was able to elect a representative of their choosing in compliance with Voting Rights Act.
Okay, if I had the opportunity and had the software, I could fix this problem very easily. I know that once you move an area from one spot, you have to add from someplace else. Given the time, you have to, if you remove some people from this district, you'd have to backfill from another area. Given the time that we've actually had to work on this, I mean, it's almost impossible. Not only that, but if you look at the maps, they're not very well detailed. I mean, if you look at some of the maps, how the lines are drawn, they're not following natural boundaries. They're going right down in the middle of, I don't even know.
So these maps tend to be drawn based on census blocks. I think your complaint then is with the Census Bureau and how they define census blocks. But I will say there are millions of ways to draw a map. This happens to be the way the map was drawn. If we had the members of this body draw maps, we'd have 141 different maps. So whatever map gets drawn, somebody's going to have some issue somewhere with thinking it's not perfect for them. And I understand that, and those are valid concerns, but it's inevitable with any map drawn by anybody.
Right. Well, I would just like to say, for last thing I want to say, that I was involved with the citizens map, and I heard from my district, a lot of people in my district, they do not want to be put with Baltimore City. It's obvious. We had, I think, 800 people show up, called or whatever. They don't want to be part of Baltimore City. The problems that we have in Dundalk is not the same problems and things that needs to be dealt with in Randallstown. No, Baltimore City does go in here.
That sounded like argument, not a question.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you.
There's no more debate. Nicole? Senate Bill, gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can the minority leader kind of clear something up for me?
You mean minority leader or the
I'm
majority
sorry, majority leader. Okay. Yeah, I
Majority
apologize.
leader?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Yeah. What I'm trying to figure out is I was very interested to be able to hear the redistricting joint committee hearing, and so I missed it, obviously. When was it posted on the General Assembly website when the meeting was going to take place?
Let me first say I'm disappointed because I was hoping you would have questions for the minority leader and I'd get to take a seat for a second. But,
well, I'm a little dyslexic from time to time, so apologize.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. We all look the same. So I don't know exactly when it was posted.
Okay, so if I told you it was posted at 8:30 on March 28th, would you say that might be accurate? It was posted on the website.
I don't know. I wasn't
well,
following.
if I told you then the meeting for the hearing was at 8:30 the next day. So it got posted, I mean, in other words, it wasn't it was like 12 hours before it was posted and then the joint hearing was held.
So the timeline for this was determined by the judge's order that required us to get
I understand, but you know, we are a public body, and okay, so let me ask you this. How long, you were there at the joint meeting, right?
I was.
Okay, so how long were you there?
In the hearing?
In other words, how long was the meeting, the joint meeting between the House and the Senate?
I don't recall exactly how long it went on.
Okay, well, would you say it was maybe 34 minutes and 28 seconds?
I'm not sure why you're asking me questions you already know the answer to.
Well, you were there. I wasn't there. I missed the meeting, so I kind of want to make sure.
But you already know the answer to the question.
And
questions exist under the rules of this legislative body to seek new information. If you already know the answer to the question, that's something you can use in debate.
Well, but you were there and I wasn't, and I missed it, and I'm sorry. So exactly when did you guys vote on it after the meeting?
When did the Rules Committee vote?
Yeah, when did the Rules Committee vote?
We convened yesterday evening at, I don't remember the exact time, 6:30?
Okay, so I guess, and you didn't have a lot of people testify at the joint hearing, did you? You just had a couple folks.
As I said, we had 3 Republican activists show up to testify.
Okay, but you also had a lot of people that, you know, put in the you know, what do I want to say, comments that they were unfavorable, but they didn't testify. And you had a lot more unfavorable than favorable. Isn't that true?
I don't recall.
Oh, you didn't look, okay. All right, well, I guess my concern is I know that the citizens map had hours and hours of testimony. They traveled around the state. They made sure they hit everybody. And the legislative map that the majority party put in for the congressional district didn't really have a lot of input. And that's my concern. So that's why I'm going to probably be voting against this, because this is probably one of the most important things that our legislature does, is to set up the boundaries for the congressional districts. And we really should be very careful that we include everybody, and everybody as far as race, political philosophy, creed, and that everybody gets a free shot at good representation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Majority
Madam Speaker,
Leader.
point of order. I have a point of order. Madam Speaker,
yes.
repeatedly our Majority Leader has referenced 5 Republican activists. I know you've asked us to not use political parties on the floor. I just want to correct him. I believe it was 5 citizens that testified from the minority party.
Okay. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, to the point of order, I said 3, not 5. And the minority in their debate throughout this has been referencing political parties, and I just went along with that.
Okay, no further debate.
Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
I just want to add a couple thoughts to this debate. First of all, I want to take a second, and it's unfortunate that sometimes there's rhetoric about them which is unfair, and commend the Department of Legislative Services. It was, I think, a Herculean task for a new congressional map to be prepared in 5 days. And regardless of what you think of the map, those folks who are underpaid and overworked and underappreciated do extraordinary work. And I think we should appreciate them for that. Congressional districting is probably among the issues that garners the most partisan debate of any issue in our country. And we've heard a lot of debate about these maps from a partisan perspective, from the perspective of Democrats versus Republicans, as if that's the only issue that matters when drawing maps. And it's not. In fact, the judge's order asked us specifically to consider 2 criteria which had not previously been applied to congressional maps in the state of Maryland. That is compactness, number 1, and a reduction in the crossing of county and municipal boundaries, number 2. In addition to that, we have an obligation under federal law and court decisions to comply with the Voting Rights Act. So I will say the following about this map. It continues to give voters in both the 4th and 7th congressional districts the ability to choose an elected official of their choosing as required under federal case law and federal statute. This map is significantly more compact. In fact, you can just tell that by looking at it with the naked eye. But if that's not good enough for you, one of the standards of compactness is simply measuring the perimeter of these districts. And the average perimeter of a district under this map is more than 100 miles shorter than the average perimeter under the previous map. And finally, the criteria relating to the crossing of boundaries. To my knowledge, there is not a established municipality in the state of Maryland that's crossed by the boundaries of these districts. In addition, this map significantly reduces county crossings. Frederick County, which under the previous map was under 2 congressional districts, is under 1. Harford County went from 2 to 1. Montgomery County went from 4 to 3. Howard County went from 2 to 1. Anne Arundel went from 3 to 2. Baltimore City went from 3 to 2. This map makes every effort to meet the judge's requirements in the order. It is a map that I think the people of Maryland can be proud of, and I would urge us to cast a green vote.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County in Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Majority Leader, I was just listening to what you were saying about compactness. And I'm looking at the 7th district, and I'm looking at the 2nd congressional district. There's a red island in the 7th district. how is that compactness to have that red island that it appears, other than maybe a street, is set aside in that Baltimore City district? So the 7th district has a red island in it from the 2nd Congressional District. How is that compactness?
You're asking why the 2nd district crosses into Baltimore City? Sorry,
No, I'm
Madam Speaker.
asking, the island. It's an island. I mean, I'm looking at the map right here, and I see an island.
As I explained to the gentleman from Baltimore County a second ago, that was done to ensure compliance with the Voting Rights Act.
But how's that work with the compliance for compactness? Because obviously, that's not compact. That's setting by itself alone in the 7th district. Now, there may be a road or an alley that connects it into the 2nd, but the map I'm looking at, it's an island. And an island sets all by itself. Now, if it wasn't red, if it was pink like Baltimore City, it wouldn't be an island, it would be compact. It's at the top. It's like a reverse hat.
Delegate, I'm not sure what you're talking about. One of the basic requirements of congressional districts is that they have to be contiguous. These districts are contiguous.
Well, I know one thing. Looks like there was a million ways to make sure that that 2nd Congressional District did not come in to Baltimore City, that was all compact within Baltimore City. And, you know, I just don't see how. I'm looking at the Baltimore City lines. I'm looking at how the northern part of Baltimore City has a straight line across the top of it. Then all of a sudden there's this, you know, area, maybe it's a peninsula, sticking down from the 2nd Congressional District. How is that compactness?
Majority Leader.
I think I've already answered that question. So there are multiple criterion that are used.
Look, and I respect your eyes are different than my eyes. It looks to me like that is not compactness. That looks like that was intentionally done to manipulate voters in one way or the other. Thank you.
Senate Bill 1012 is on 3rd reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 94 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1012, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Vote change?
Gentleman from Queen Anne.
Vote change. Senate Bill 541 from yay to nay.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change HB 1349 to yay.
Calendar of 3rd reading, Senate Bills number 9. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 228, Maryland Corps Program Revisions.
It's on 3rd reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 105 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 228, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 514, Transportation Investment Program, MARC Rail Service, Maryland Regional Rail Transformation Act.
Is on 3rd reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will
Madam
call
Speaker.
the roll. Gentlelady from Carroll.
We're just having problems with scrolling back here. I'm not sure if everybody else is having it.
Madam Speaker.
Everybody's got the same problem. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 104 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 514, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. If you can refresh your page, refresh your page, what I'm telling you need to do. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 566, State Retirement and Pension System Investment Climate Risk Fiduciary Duties.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 94 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 566, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 802, Maryland Consortium on Coordinated Community Supports Membership and Coordinated Community Supports Partnership Fund revisions.
Madam Speaker. Sorry.
Jana Lay from Baltimore County.
Thank you. Could the floor leader rise, please?
Good evening. How are you?
Evening. Good. How are you?
Great.
I'm reading the fiscal note. Has the fiscal note changed?
Since it came over from the Senate?
Yeah, the one, yes. I'm sorry, not yeah. Yes.
No, the fiscal note has not
Hon.
changed.
Okay, so the fiscal note has not changed. What is the, I mean, it's kind of hard to follow in here. There's a lot of numbers spread out. They don't give us like a big number. Here's how many tens of millions of dollars this is going to cost.
Yeah, so it's an increase of about $10 million. So what this bill does is it adds additional funding to the mental health consortia. That was a big bipartisan emphasis and effort when we passed the blueprint to make sure that we were addressing across the state a lot of the mental health and behavioral health challenges that our schools were facing. So I think even since we've passed the blueprint, obviously with everything that's gone on over the last 2 years, this has become an even greater problem. Spent a lot of time talking about it just in this chamber alone. So I believe the chair of B&T's intent was to make sure that we had enough money in this fund in addition to what we passed in the blueprint to really address those needs appropriately across the state.
So this is above the blueprint, and it says, bill summary, fund totaling $85 million for 24, $110 million for 25, $130 million for 26, and each subsequent fiscal year, so it's way more than $10 million.
So it does increase over the out years, and I am just pulling up the fiscal note myself, so I've got it here as well. But you can see the net effect over the next few years is actually it's $10 million in 2024, again about $10 million in 2025, $5.2 million in 2026, and another $5.2 million in 27.
And so again, this is above and beyond the billions that we've committed to for the blueprint.
Again, this is to address a specific purpose, mental and behavioral health challenges that we have all, I think, unanimously agreed is a crisis in our schools right now. And this was a deliberate policy choice to make sure that since we've passed the blueprint, in the 2 years since we've passed it, we are facing a crisis in our schools with mental health. And this is another way to help tackle those challenges across the board. This is not earmarked to one district over another. This is available for grants to every school system in the state.
Okay. And yet there wasn't money in the blueprint for it.
There was money in the blueprint. This is on top of the money in the blueprint.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate? Not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 112 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 802, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 862, Baltimore City, Maryland Transit Administration, Transit Services for Public School Students and Youth Workers.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 126 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 862, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third
Madam
reading.
Speaker, I have a vote change. SB.
From Harford County.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 514, nay to yay. That's, sorry, that's when my computer was not working, and I was fidgeting. Thanks.
Okay. Gentleman from Kent.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Vote change on House Bill 514 from nay to yay.
Gentleman from Queen Anne's.
Vote change. I'm having trouble with 5 numbers today. Vote change on Senate Bill 514 from nay to yay.
Any other vote changes? Okay. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 13. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 275, Labor and Employment, Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program, Establishment Time to Care Act of 2022.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
All right. Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 693729/1.
Amendment number 1.
So much we considered reading the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is actually a very, very simple bill. It's not only simple, it's actually common sense amendment. So the legislator continues to the tradition of, in my view, making the mistake or tying taxes or fees to the CPI. And this morning we had an attempt to untie the CPI from this bill. So what this amendment does, if the CPI is going to increase and the fee is going to increase, then it should also decrease when the CPI decrease. So it's a simple, clean amendment, and I looking forward for the floor leader to accept it as a friendly amendment. I move the amendment.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the way this is set up, much like Washington, D.C. just did, they can already reduce it. They can reduce the amount of money. Every 2 years they meet, and they decide what the new standard's going to be and what the new rate is going to be. And they can already do this, so this is unnecessary.
Perfect. So we can put it in. It would be no problem.
Or it's unnecessary, so we don't.
Well,
I would ask everybody to oppose this amendment because it is unnecessary. We allow every 2 years, again, we reevaluate our system to make sure that we're taking just as much money as we need, nothing more. And at that time, the rates can increase or decrease. So as such, this is unnecessary.
Madam
Please
Speaker, I
resist the
see no
amendment.
harm in adopting the amendment, so I push the amendment.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose?
Roll call, Madam
Roll
Speaker.
call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded the vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. The amendment fails.
Madam Speaker.
Okay, recognizing the gentlelady from Carroll.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on some questions I had earlier today, and I tried to do my homework in the little bit of time we had left. And I was asking earlier about the impact on businesses who already provide quality, uniform, paid leave to their workforces. And we discussed how this bill would impact them and their employees. And can you just tell me again how this would impact? There are a lot of employers that currently have paid sick leave and have very robust packages. Tell me again what you told us about those employers.
I guess the term "a lot" is subjective because there aren't a lot. There are employers that do have it, and if they have a robust program that meets the requirements that we're asking and setting for the employees of the state, then they do not have to participate in this program.
And you suggested at the time that there would be many of them. I mentioned a couple big corporations. I mentioned the state of Maryland. I mentioned some of our public school systems that I think we would agree that governments, municipalities, counties that have robust programs. And I was trying to figure out how this would impact those types of employers that already have robust leave policies.
On page 24, 8.3 706, it specifies again that individuals who are not, it's line C. Employer provides covered employees with private employer plan. Employee that's covered by the private employer plan are exempt from the contributions required in the state of this title. Meaning, if these individuals have a system that's equal to what we're proposing, they do not have to participate.
And that's the key word you just said, and that's the part that I was concerned about, because it says equal. And it says right before where you said, see, I have that page right in my hand, 8.3706, an employer may satisfy the requirements of this title through a private employer plan consisting of benefits, insurance, or a combination of both if the private employer is offered to all of the employees, eligible employees, and meets or exceeds the rights, protections, and benefits under this title. So
Correct.
That's the concern that I have. My question is, do you know right now of any business or the state of Maryland that actually would meet or exceed what we do are requiring in this bill today?
I don't.
Well, let's just look at the state of Maryland. And I'm not a benefit expert.
I'll say I don't again before you say that, before you ask me, because
Well,
I
I don't know either, but I think it's a question that we need, because we're saying that these people can opt out, and they already have very generous programs. I don't think the state of Maryland today meets or exceeds what we have in this package of 12 weeks, all these different folks that it applies to, which exceeds FMLA, of paid sick leave. I don't believe that our own state would meet these requirements, or any other county. I was just trying to think of even any business, big business, that would meet these. These are very extensive benefits. And so in reality, I mean, I think we should know what the impact would be on the state of Maryland, because it's going to impact our budget.
Then we will lead by example. We are ensured, because that's the whole point, correct, that all the citizens of Maryland are afforded some protections in case of tragedy or childbirth. So if our state or our counties or municipalities indeed don't meet this standard, then they will step up and lead by example, as we would expect them to do.
Okay, let's accept the fact that I don't believe that anyone would meet this criteria in the state of Maryland currently, having 12 weeks of paid leave for all of these folks that we've discussed, not just yourself, not just sickness of yourself, but all these covered situations. So let's assume that. We talked about then who is going to be paying the tax. So a lot of people already get very robust benefits. So are they all going to be subject to this tax, this payroll tax?
I swore I've answered this before, but maybe I'm not being specific. If you're offering the rights and privileges that we are setting up in this program, if you meet or exceed them, then you are not subject to contributions either through the employer or the individual employees.
And I think it's a question that we need to ask ourselves. I don't believe that any county, municipality, school system, the state of Maryland, or any business currently meets these requirements, which would mean, and if you have other information, I think we should know that, because you acted earlier on that a lot of people wouldn't have to pay this because they already have these robust plans.
Oh, the opposite. I have never said a lot of people, because that's the problem, is that we've waited for private industry to do this on their own for years, and it hasn't been done.
But I think there are a lot of private industry that have some very robust.
You keep saying both ways.
Okay. My point is, you acted earlier like not everyone was going to be paying into this if they already were subject to some very generous benefits. I'm saying that it sounds to me like every single employee in the state of Maryland is going to be paying this payroll tax, or the Department of Labor is going to have to continue to attest to these plans and see if they're equal to what we've required here. So I also was looking at some of the testimony during the break from the Department of Labor in just administering this. Can you just tell the body, I just think we should all know, what the Department of Labor anticipates will be the costs of setting up this program and running the program based on what they know? It was...
I think it was roughly 20 million to my knowledge. And again, I'll say, as we've made clear, before we allow the Department of Labor to step in and possibly jump in over their heads, they will be evaluated by DLS to ensure that they themselves are capable of doing this. So we will have oversight to make sure they can even get involved in this to the level that we need them to.
I think it wasn't 20 million, double that, plus it was $45 million that I think that they put in their fiscal note that they believe it would take 400 employees and just setting up the criteria. And they also had in there about a $50 million one-time setup fee just to have the infrastructure in place.
Sure.
That's $100 million just to run the program.
Yes.
And right now in the bill, and the fiscal note is not updated for all the amendments that we've had in the past. So right now in the fiscal note, it's a $1.5 billion transfer into this insurance program for the next 18 months. Is that true? When this occurs next year, all these employees and employers are going to start paying a certain payroll tax for 18 months before the program is started.
Be a contribution starting next year,
So
correct?
contribution, and I think we need to be clear. People think they're going to be getting some benefit, but they're paying into a payroll tax like FICA, like Social Security, like Medicare, mandatory payroll tax for an employee and an employer for the next 18 months.
Yes.
To pay for at least $1.5 billion worth of benefits. So there's a new $1.5 billion tax on payroll for 18 months before anybody can even get a benefit from it. Is that accurate?
Not at all. I'm not sure what your math means, but I mean, if I will be again clear that we will be collecting from, I think, starting October 1 of 2023. You will not be able to actually draw down until January 1 of 2025. Which is, I guess, a little less than 18 months where we will be withdrawing. The assumption is we will collect about $1.4 billion to put in the fund. That fund will also include up any startup money, any money for the IT systems, any oversight and accountability issues. That will be a part of that fund. It will not be coming out of the general fund.
So right now, I think we approved $21 million.
That's correct.
And what is that money for?
That was fenced off to make sure we can get this program started.
And what is that for?
To make sure we can get this program started. When Department of Labor wants to start hiring individuals to evaluate, if DLS needs to do things to evaluate this program, that's going to assist in getting the program starting in the evaluation.
I would just suggest that everybody look at the testimony carefully and realize we are talking about setting up a program that's a new tax on employees. It's going to come off their paycheck. Every state employee, all of us, everyone in the state of Maryland who earns a wage is going to be paying a new payroll tax cumulatively around $1.5 billion. We don't know the number yet, and every employer, and for 18 months is not going to have any program set up. And my question that we still don't have an answer to, there's no answer because it has to be studied, but there are already many people like the state of Maryland and governments and big businesses are already paying very generous benefits. How is that? All those people are still going to have a payroll tax. Their businesses are already paying for all these benefits for them today, and how is that all going to work together?
As I said, we will start the contribution cycle October 1 of 23. January 1 of 25, they can be beginning to draw down. We have to build a fund up. This is an insurance policy. It is a fund created, as a pool that's created so individuals can draw down on that in their greatest time of need.
All right, thank you. And one thing I just want to mention, the word contribution, I've not looked it up, but to me when I contribute, it's a choice. I contribute to my church, I contribute to this or that, I contribute to my retirement plan, but when you don't have a choice in it, it's not a contribution, it's a tax, it's a payroll tax, and that's what it is.
Those are semantics, so if that's the word you choose to use, I will use contribution.
Well, I just think we should be honest with people, but thank you very much.
Being honest when I say contribution.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 813522.
Amendment number 1.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members of the body and Mr. Chairman. We discussed this earlier, and I have a quick question for the floor leader.
Could you explain the amendment first, because we don't see it, and I don't remember.
So must be the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
I'll read it shortly. This title does not apply to an employee of an employer if the employee opts out of the program by filing a written notice of election with the Secretary in accordance with the regulations. So this is simply, as you have already in the bill an opt-in for self-employed, this simply allows employees who want to opt out to do so. As we just heard the discussion, as we've talked, there's an incredible number of people in this state that are hurting right now. We've got a gas crisis, we've got an inflation crisis. We just passed an emergency gas crisis bill to give everybody about $15-20 extra per fill-up for 30 days. But yet this is going to take out of their paycheck significant amounts, $500 to $1,100 a year. So this is an opt-out. Now my question, Mr. Chairman, floor leader, is this. Is child support deducted before or after the employment taxes?
After.
So, as written, this bill will take the money before child support is provided to the needy child, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So for that, I would move the amendment, and here's the simple, straightforward. I would ask that this be a friendly amendment, Mr. Chair. This is the straightforward option to opt out. It just simply says, look, if you're tight, if you're a healthy young person who has no need to exercise 2 or 3 or 4 years in advance a possible family leave, you're already under the pressure of a deduction for child support, whatever that might be, whatever the situation might be. This simply says, as you have allowed self-employed business owners to opt in, this simply says an employee who is burdened by this, if they so choose, can opt out. That's all this says. So I'd move the amendment.
Thank you. I would ask the body to resist the amendment for the obvious solvency issue. As people participating at random, we would create an unpredictable marketplace. More than that, when we talk about child support, another thing that's difficult about paying child support is if you're sick, if you're in the hospital, if you have to take care of a mother who is on her deathbed, you still want to pay child support then. And that's the good thing about this program. It will still allow you to tend to some of your financial needs, some of your financial obligations while you're dealing with your sick child, with your dying mother. So I believe that this is the antithesis of what we're trying to create here, which is for these individuals who are tight. When things go bad, we want them to be able to still drive on, succeed, and survive. So for all those reasons, I would ask that we oppose this amendment.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? They're not. Does anyone care to change their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
All right, thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Floor Leader, I have an amendment, but let me give the amendment number first. 275/653-727/1.
Amendment number 1.
Me so much be the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Mr. Floor Leader, as you know, my district, I represent a lot of farmers and fishermen. In this First Amendment, there was a concern about H-2A workers. And over in my district, we have times when there's planting season and there's harvest season, and the number of employees fluctuates. So it may go up above 15 for a period of time, and then it goes down. This bill to me is just not clear on the position on H-2A employees. Could you give me any clarification on that?
Yes, if there are more than 15 employees and they work 680 hours or more in a year, then they would have to pay into this.
Over 680 hours?
Correct.
All right, thank you. So, essentially, this First Amendment, because there is this fluctuation, and these are temporary workers, this First Amendment essentially exempts H-2A temporary agriculture workers. So I'd like to press that amendment.
Thank you. I would ask the body to reject this amendment. What this does, in a nutshell, is it incentivizes employers to not hire Americans. Because what it does is it says that if you hire these visa holders, then you don't have to pay into the system. We don't want to do that. In this country, we do try our best to incentivize people to hire Americans when we can. So I would oppose this amendment. I don't believe that that's the goal of this body.
Well, you know, there's other conditions of these. When you have these temporary workers, and you know, you give them 12 weeks that they can go visit their family, you know, or because they have a family issue, you know, they may have to cross the border and they may not be able to get back into the United States. That's one of the problems. And I think that the 680 hours is like 17 weeks or something like that.
That's correct. It's 17
So
weeks at 40.
That's pretty much past the whole harvest season. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I don't know enough about the harvest season. I would take your word on it. So you're saying 680 hours, it takes you out of the harvest season?
It may very well. It's 17 weeks is a lot. It's a pretty long period of growing period is what I'm saying.
So if they're not working up to that 680, then they don't qualify. So
Well,
they wouldn't qualify it.
You got the planting season and you have the harvest season. So they separate in there. How does that play out in this bill? So say they got 300 hours in the planting season, then they're kind of slack off for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they go into a pretty aggressive harvest season. How does that work in this bill?
Once they hit that 17 weeks at 40 hours a week, or a total of 680 hours, then they will be contributing to this.
So is that continuous?
No.
So it could be a combination?
Without a doubt. The goal was to capture part-time workers as well.
Right, so that's more the reason for the amendment to exempt the H-2A temporary agricultural worker.
And again, to make sure that people understand what we're dealing with here, that this isn't just a leave policy that you get to take. It's not something frivolous. It's not something haphazard. There are qualifications and certifications that have to be met in order for you to qualify for this leave, and they are verified by a state agency. I would ask you to oppose this amendment because this isn't a leave policy, and as I said, we're not going to try to get, we're not going to incentivize people to not hire American workers. We don't want that to be part of the quotient when they hire. So for all those reasons, I would ask that we oppose this amendment.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone care to change their vote? Gentlemen, are you?
I have another amendment.
Oh,
Madam
okay, well, let
Speaker.
me get this finished first. I didn't know if you were up here for. If not, the clerk will take the call. Yeah, the amendment fails. Gentlemen's other amendment?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Speaker, have another amendment to desk, SB 275/783-928/1.
Amendment number 1.
Again, this is very similar to the last amendment, but this one specifically goes to H-2B visa employees. These are non-agricultural workers. Many of you have read about these in the paper, and you've heard about them on the shore. It's a very challenging situation that we have trying to keep our picking houses going. The picking houses are really struggling, and you know, the ramifications of this legislation really will be very detrimental to that picking industry. So again, really with the same issues that I brought with you before with the previous amendment, you know, the difference on this one is a H-2B temporary non-agricultural employee. It's really the same conditions. It's really an industry that really can't stand a whole lot more pressure against it. And again, Mr. Floor Leader, I ask that you consider this amendment.
Floor Leader.
And thank you, colleague. I appreciate what you're trying to do. Obviously, I've stated my opposition in the last amendment. I could restate that. I don't think I need to waste everyone's time, but I do understand. That's why we tried to create the standards that we created, because we are trying to capture as many of these low-level employees as possible. Here's the problem, guys. You know, a lot of these big-time attorneys and, you know, they've got these good jobs with these good benefits packages. But these part-time workers, these season workers, they have zero benefits. They have nothing to fall back on. We shouldn't treat them any less than we treat our white-collar workers. It's incumbent upon us to make sure that in people's darkest moments, they have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. That's what we're hoping to create here. We are not trying to stress or break down an industry. And I've looked at the research, California, other places, the small and medium businesses have seen either neutral or no damage to their business. We're doing this, obviously, like I said, every 2 years we come back and visit, but I would ask you to resist, because at the end of the day, we are trying to capture these individuals who need these benefits. We're not trying to leave the least of us behind. For those reasons, I would ask that we oppose this amendment.
And I appreciate your comments, Mr. Floor Leader. But these unintended consequences on some of these businesses are going to put them out of business. That's what's going to happen here. They're struggling as it is. You know, we're trying to get any workers in there. It just happens to be that these industries really are dependent on H-2B, temporary, non-ag workers. And we're asking for some help in an industry that's already struggling. I think everybody in here likes to eat crab cakes. And it's going to be a tough year this year based on some of the things that are coming out of here. So again, I press my amendment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just say lastly that we are creating an incentive for them to come and join your workforce. This is an extra added bonus for those workers who decide to do this with the crabbing industry, with the agricultural industry, something more that they can, just something else to draw them back into the workforce. Because you're right, we're down workers, we need to find some. We're hoping that this can help lure them back in. Thank you.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any other amendments?
Madam Speaker.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, 793921/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Inherent in this legislation is a requirement that an individual or an individual's family member that entitles them to benefits has a medical condition, an illness, an injury, something that would justify them to take this time off from their normal employment. What my amendment does, and the amendment I'll direct you, it appears to me, unless my good friend from Charles County corrects me, it appears to me that some of the language I'll be talking about is on page 10 of the reprint, when it suggests that the covered individual has to provide, the term used is certification for a claim for benefits. And the certification for a claim for benefits includes the date on which the serious health condition of the family member, covered individual, or service member commenced, the probable duration of the condition, and appropriate facts from a licensed healthcare provider. So that you can't just say, you know, I don't feel so good this week. There's got to be something more to it, and that's good. What my amendment does, however, is that it requires that certification be essentially continuously verified or updated on a monthly basis. Some people suggested in the business community a weekly basis. Some people suggested a bi-weekly basis. I think monthly is reasonable, that on a monthly basis that the healthcare provider who is providing services or treating either you, if you're the beneficiary, or your family member for whom you're claiming this significant benefit, can verify and update that the condition still continues to exist to the extent that it would be inappropriate or unfair or unreasonable for you to return to work. In my professional life, I do some workers' compensation work from time to time, and this is really normal. So if you have a workplace injury and you're covered by the workers' compensation insurance program, for which this has some corollaries, you don't get workers' comp for your family member that was injured, obviously, but there's some corollary to the system and the purpose of it. And if you get injured and you are provided with permanent partial disability, or temporary partial disability that says I can't go to work, you are frequently required to update that information with your medical provider. You're not just said, hey, you're out there forever, and we'll come back and verify at the end of 12 weeks. We believe that this amendment is in good faith to simply suggest that on a monthly basis, an individual who's claiming this benefit for themselves or as an extension of their loved one's medical condition provide a verification. The certification that's included in the bill would be fine. A slip, a doctor's note, an email, whatever digital communication that the department believes appropriate on a monthly basis. And part of the reason for that is so that you don't accrue 12 weeks of the benefits, and then the employer goes back and says, hey, the doctor thought that you would be okay after your foot surgery after a few weeks, but you weren't. Or, hey, we put you off for 12 weeks for the period of time, and the doctor basically said would have released you to work after 3 or 4 weeks, but for whatever reason, you didn't want to go back. I believe in the good faith of people, but I've represented enough workers' compensation claimants to tell you this. I've represented a lot of folks who will tell me, oh, Jason, there's no way I could go back to work. There's no way I could go back to work. You got to get my benefits extended. And then I read their medical records, and their treating physician says, you can go back to work. I told you could go back to work. That exists. That's reality. There will be many people who will be benefited by this program, and there will be some people who abuse the benefits in the program, and this is designed to try to limit those in a fair and reasonable way to a once-a-month recertification. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would ask my colleagues to resist this amendment. We're going to assume, number one, that a lot of the applicants don't have shiesty attorneys that can tell them ways to get out of a program and make things work. They're not going to be represented by genius counsel, so they're going to be doing this on their own, and I do have the good faith that they're going to try their best to do the right thing. But I want to define what a serious health condition is. It's an illness, an injury, an impairment, or a physical or mental condition that involves inpatient care in a hospital, hospice, or residential facility, continued treatment by a licensed healthcare provider, or continued treatment under supervision of a licensed healthcare provider. So we are narrowing those circumstances. It isn't, oh, my foot hurts, I can't go to work. In addition, we require, as you heard, the certification include something written that estimates the amount of time required for the provider. So I also want to make sure that we're trying our best to avoid the bureaucratic mess that I believe that this amendment would create. We've heard all kinds of complaints about, well, can MDOL can Department of Labor do this? Well, we're adding not just an extra step, a multitude of extra steps. And lastly, I believe this is going to be create an undue hardship, especially for those who may not have the financial resources to continue to go back, in addition to their consistent treatment, go back to their primary care physician, whoever, and pay for this certification every month. The goal was to streamline this, to get the specificity early on, a professional opinion on how long the treatment's going to be necessary, and at that point, allow the system to work for itself. It's not to make it more complicated, it's not to make it more difficult or burdensome or to cost individuals more money. So for all those reasons, I would ask that we oppose this amendment.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If you're under consistent management, medical treatment, you're not going to pay an extra $1 because you're going to be going to see the doctor, and the doctor doesn't charge you to fill out a slip that he sends to your employer, the Department of Labor, and said that Joe Blow is still treating with me. It's just a slip. They're not going to be paying anything. There's nothing particular to it. It's simply a recognition that on week 1, when I get this benefit, the doctor may say, hey, you had some type of surgery, you need to check back in 3 or 4 weeks, and I'll keep it going, and you apply for the full 12-week benefit, and maybe, because sometimes people do get better, at the end of the 3 or 4 week period, the doctor feels that it's okay for you to return to work in full or partial capacity, but maybe you don't want to, because sometimes people don't. We just saw a lot of people with the COVID-19 pandemic who made a decision, an emotional decision, a personal decision for themselves and their families. I don't really want to go back. And I think that's okay. I think that's certainly fine. But the employer shouldn't have to continue to pay for that if this unverified period lasts. So we're trying to be very, very reasonable here. Very reasonable. Every month, you can get something, if you're under medical care, truly under medical care, you can get something from your doctor, from your nurse practitioner, from your mental health care provider, whoever it is, that says, yes, I continue to treat claimant X, they are under my care, and they should not return, or I'm not recommending that they return to work. And that qualifies them for the benefit. That's it. I don't want to use the word guardrails because my very good friend from Baltimore City isn't here, and we have a little bit of a bet during the session how many times people can say guardrails, but I think that that's all that this is intended to be, guardrails. Thanks. Count that up. I appreciate it.
And lastly, colleagues, again, I don't know the maker of the amendment's doctor, but my doctor does charge me per visit. If I need something filled out, if I need my shot records, oh, I'm going to pay. and I have insurance. So again, to say that it doesn't cost anything, I know that's not true because my doctor charges me. Secondly, to assume that a doctor is going to say, hey, look, come back and see me in 3 weeks, but hey, take 12 weeks off. I'll certify that. I'll risk my professional reputation to just make up a number because it's the maximum number. Again, I think that that's a little bit specious as well. At the end of the day, I do not wish to create more of a complication for this. We want to make sure that we don't bring the bureaucracy, we don't tie up the bureaucracy, and having a multitude of these coming in at one time, making sure each claim is, again, properly submitted, it talks about the probable duration, the appropriate facts related to the seriousness of health condition with the knowledge of a licensed healthcare provider, and an estimate of the time required. To that monthly becomes burdensome to both the doctor, the healthcare profession, as well as the individual who has to pay for it. For all those reasons, I ask to resist this amendment.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. The amendment fails.
Madam Speaker?
Gentlelady from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk, amendment number SB 275-953-824-1. Move so much to consideration of reading the amendment.
So ordered.
I believe this is a very simple bill. Amendment, I should say. The amendment basically just makes the department create the written notice of the rights and duties for the employer to distribute.
Okay.
Move so much the amendment.
Okay. The Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We see this as a friendly amendment and we'll accept it.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Are there any other? Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 763423.
Amendment number 1.
Colleagues, I think
So much be considered.
so much be considered to read the amendment.
So ordered.
Colleagues, this amendment's pretty simple. In the bill, there's a couple provisions that allow the 12 weeks.
Can you hold 1 second? Can you read the number again? Because the clerk didn't have it up here. So
763423/1.
we don't have this up here. Can you bring a copy of the?
I don't have the amendment. It's not printed.
Were you saying the wrong number?
Madam Speaker, I'd like to
Say the right number?
reread the number.
Okay, good.
563-520/1.
Amendment number 1.
If this so much be considered the reading of this amendment.
So order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I understand what this amendment does, it caps the leave at 12 weeks. In the bill, there's some provisions that would extend it, and this just puts a cap at 12 weeks. And the reason for that is simple. I'm sure all of us have heard the same concern in many of our committees. We have a serious labor shortage. Many people have described it as almost as a crisis. We have a shortage of healthcare workers, workers for nursing homes. We have a shortage in local, state, and federal government. We have a shortage in restaurants. We have a shortage in nursing homes. We have a shortage of therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists, behavioral therapists. The search for able-bodied, talented individuals is fierce and competitive right now. And that's why we've actually lowered the requirements for many of these things, because we're all businesses
and all employers are in desperate need of these people. And knowing that, all of these businesses would do anything for their employees. I am a small business owner as well, and I can tell you every small business owner I know would do anything for their employees. So look, my heart goes out when I hear some of the reasons why we might need to extend this with cancer and some drastic diagnosis and family members being sick. And most businesses would do anything to help those people. They're part of their family, and I'm sure they could find ways to help them. The problem we run into, and I mentioned this earlier, my concern is what we saw with the unemployment insurance. This is not coming from me. This is coming from our own reports. We had 152,000 fraudulent claims. We found one time last year that 87% of our claims were fraudulent. My concern is if you pay people to stay home, they will. And sometimes it's going to be the people that shouldn't be staying home. Of course, the people that really need this, it's a well-intentioned bill. We all understand that. But one of the toughest things to do as a business owner is to predict the future, is to forecast, is to plan. I always tell people, yeses are fine, nos are fine. I don't knows will put you in the grave because you can't accurately predict. If you know the circumstance that it's going to be just 12 weeks, then maybe you have to work 16, 18 hours a day just to get to that 12-week part. But if you constantly have to be guessing, well, this is going to be extended, and then unfortunately, as many of you might have experienced in your own businesses, employees tend to want to do what the other employees are doing. So some employees will get jealous and say, well, Joe Sixpack's been off for 8 weeks, and all he's doing is sitting home drinking beer and hanging out with his newborn. I should be able to do that too. And then you have a problem where everybody in your business starts to do it. And I think if we put a cap at 12 weeks, these circumstances, which are heartbreaking, most businesses will be able to figure it out. But if we don't put this hard cap on there, there will be waste and there will be fraud. I can guarantee you that. So I think this is a pretty common sense amendment. And for that, I push the amendment, Madam Speaker.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would ask that we oppose this amendment. In working this bill up, I had a wonderful counsel before she left to move to the Department of Treasury, and I remember talking to her, and she was telling me with tears in her eyes about having to be on bed rest and knowing that every day she spent on bed rest was 1 week that she could not spend with her children because she had a limited amount of leave that she could have. And Laura's the one who convinced me to get fully behind this because she was so emphatic that that time with her newborn was so important, and she knew every moment she couldn't come to work because her legs were swollen, her feet were swollen, and she couldn't sit or stand. But if she chose not to come to work, then she was limiting the amount of time that she had to speak with her child, or be with her child. I say all that because there is one set of circumstances where this applies. One, where you have somebody who has an injury, a pregnant woman who has an injury or something that keeps her on bed rest or something of that nature. And then she has a child. Because she was sick earlier, because by no problems of her own she got ill, then she should not be penalized and kept away from her child. Our goal is to foment that relationship between, that bond between the newborn and the parent. We don't want to penalize, because all we're penalizing with this amendment is women, because it only applies to women, and it only applies to women who are giving birth. And I, for one, do not wish to single them out, target them, or penalize them because they happen to have been on bed rest prior to giving birth. So for those reasons, I do ask that you oppose this amendment.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. The amendment fails.
Madam Speaker.
I'll see you there. Gentleman from Wycomico?
Sure, I'll take that. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Amendment, an amendment at the desk. 283-721/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Folks, you may think you've heard an amendment similar to this, but it's very different. This is an amendment that would eliminate, or I hate to use the word eliminate, but just say that seasonal employees would not be included in this. So we heard about particular types of seasonal employees, but this is not an Ocean City issue. This is a seasonal employee that could exist across the state from Western Maryland to Ocean City. This is the seasonal employee, the college student, that I really don't think this bill is intended to help. I think we're trying to help people that are supporting a family, working hard, and not the college worker that's trying to get beer money for college. So I asked for consideration to this amendment. You have the folks that are working as lifeguards, pit beef stands, snowball stands. We need to eliminate these employees. So the amendment, if they're working for 4 or fewer months, they would be exempted from this bill. Madam Speaker, I ask you to move the amendment.
Chairman of the committee. Yes, Chairman of the committee.
Oh, apologize, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would ask we oppose this amendment. We set the 680 hours for a reason, because that's 17 weeks at 40 hours a week that you have to work. So if somebody's working that or more, we actually want to capture them in this. We want them to pay in and be a part. And young people experience tragedy. Remember, that's the hours is just part one. They still have to pay in now in order to receive a benefit and take a portion of their salary. They still have to meet the qualifications of a serious health injury or a birth. So if somebody is in that situation and they're a seasonal employee and they've worked more than 680 hours and they have a child, I would think we would want to try to, take care of them. So I would ask that we oppose this amendment. I don't want to turn our back on our seasonal workers, our individuals who work part-time. The goal is to capture them into this system, that they're contributing to the system and they fall into those protections. As I've said earlier, it would be nice to be able to say, I have a benefits package along with my job at Target or along with my seasonal work. I have something more, something to fall back on. So for those reasons, I would ask that we oppose this amendment. Thank you.
Maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I didn't want to confuse the issue and bring up the argument of a J1 student. A J1 student is not technically considered an employee. It's a cultural exchange program. And the program is designed whereas there actually has to be cultural exchanges where we're helping these students from other countries understand what our culture is like here in America. So, but the law also says that those students must have the same benefits as their American counterpart. So I didn't want to confuse things with this, and my understanding of the bill is they need to work 680 hours the previous year to be eligible. So we could have an international student come here or a college student that's working for beer money, not what I think the intentions of this body is for this bill, work 680 hours the year before, work 2 weeks, and something happened back home in their country and have to leave to take care of their mother in another country. And we're going to be sending money from our employers across the ocean and helping somebody that's not even here. And I don't think that is at all the intentions of this bill. And I really ask this body, I don't think our Maryland residents would really appreciate knowing that every amendment that comes across the floor, now we've had 2 exceptions this year, we just strike down. I mean, we need to give this serious consideration. This is a real issue that's going to affect businesses across Maryland. And I really ask for consideration and a green vote on this amendment.
Chairman of the committee.
Briefly, Madam Speaker, for all the reasons I stated before, that again, if these individuals run into hard times, we want to protect them too. And remember, they're paying into the system. We keep conflating the word employer like somehow this is his money or her money. No, this is an insurance fund that they're able to draw down on these unique sets of circumstances. So they don't just get to say, you know what, I'm done working, let me go collect some money. They have to certify through the state as to why they should collect the money, and they can be denied. So again, if they're paying into the fund, they should be able to take out of the fund. And for all those reasons, I would ask that we oppose this amendment. We do take friendly amendments. I've taken a plethora of them today. We're not just ignoring them, but we are listening, and after careful consideration, I would ask that we oppose this amendment. Thank you.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk would take the call. The amendment fails. The minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It is 813724/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
All right, so very briefly, earlier today, I had a discussion with my friend, the chair of Economic Matters, and we talked about stacking a little bit. And he disavowed me of the notion that you would be able to stack the benefit provided under this particular piece of legislation onto leave under FMLA. So that's fine. But what you could do, though, and I think he would agree with me, what you could do is stack the leave provided under this bill onto your paid time off that's already afforded by your employer. So very simply, what this amendment does is says that you can't stack. You can't use your earned leave and then take the leave provided under the legislation before us. So, I mean, potentially, if you had 12 weeks of paid time off, you could take that, and then under certain circumstances, you could take another 24 weeks under the leave afforded by this bill that's before us, and that could have a potentially devastating impact, I believe, on our already beleaguered business community. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'd move the amendment.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you. And I again will remind the body that I would ask that we oppose this amendment, obviously, but this isn't just something where I say I don't want to come to work today. There is a process that's approved by the state. You have to get certification, and I define serious health problem for a reason, or pregnancy, and I believe that's easier to define. So I think that we're confused here, and the reason we chose in our committee to require them to exhaust all of available leave that earned by the employer is to simplify it for the employer. So again, at the end of the day, we were trying to make this as narrowly tailored as possible. We don't have a problem with solvency. We don't want people to get people to end up taking more leave than they typically would, because the studies have shown that people don't take the full 12 weeks. They take 10. We're requiring them first to exhaust their personal leave and then go in. I'm not really understanding how this amendment would meet what the maker's goals are, but what we're trying to do is allow them to utilize all the leave that they have earned and then start this process. And again, with certification and a doctor's note and doctor being specific as to how long they will be off. This is an unnecessary amendment. We're taking care of this in the most narrowly defined way possible. And for all those reasons, I ask we oppose the amendment.
Is the minority whip still pushing your amendment? Okay. Senate bill, excuse me. I'm going to rush it. Question for the House is the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Roll call.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone care to change their vote? Clerk will call the roll. The amendment fails. Okay. Okay. Senate Bill 275 is on third reading and final
Madam
passage.
Speaker.
The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Gentlemen, to explain their vote,
Please.
less than 2 minutes or less.
30 seconds. Madam Speaker, I was going to ask the floor leader, the chairman of the committee, a week or two ago, we passed House Bill 496, and this was the commission bill that we talked about. The commission was designed to, before we actually put this bill in place, let's review it, let's research it, let's do the studies, and what that bill was, 496 was that bill. It was SB 275, and we gutted that bill in committee. We heavily amended it, turned it into a commission, and sat on this House floor and debated that bill through the lens of we've got to study it before we put it in place. So, Madam Speaker, I'm just going to say that that bill is in the Senate right now. That's the bill that we should be passing, not this bill.
Gentleman from Talbot to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm a red on this, and I just want to be perfectly clear to everyone. This is a $1 billion payroll tax. This is a $1 billion, 1B as in billion dollar payroll tax. And we had a discussion just a couple of days ago. We talked about we hadn't passed any big taxes in this chamber in several years. Well, this is it. This is not even a tax increase. This is a whole new animal we're getting ready to let out of the box. The month of February, inflation was 7.9%, the highest in 40 years. And we're going to cut this loose on the citizens when we had a great idea. There were problems with that idea. I voted against the commission because I don't think this is the right way. The private market is the right way. This is a mistake. We're going to pay for it for years to come. All you got to do is read the testimony from the Department of Budget and Management, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Transportation. The government, the state, should not be running its own insurance company. The state should not be running it, and that's exactly what we're doing. And we're going to pay, the workers are going to pay for it. We are taking money from people's paychecks, whether it be $5 or $15. Know that, because it is an election year, and hopefully the voters will remember.
Madam Speaker.
Gentlelady from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
To explain your vote.
Yes, Madam Speaker. I rise to explain my vote for two reasons. One, as the lead sponsor of HB8, the cross-filed this bill that, if I don't have a chance to do so, I want to take advantage now. And two, as I mentioned over the years introducing this legislation, that I could personally have benefited from this measure. And so many of the folks here know that have worked on this measure that our nation, the United States, is alone when it comes to being without the lack of a national paid leave program. And instead, what we have is a patchwork of federal, state, and local policies. The federal law affords a little over half of workers access to unpaid leave, but provides no national paid leave. When we make history here, passing this measure out, we are one step closer to paid family medical leave. Maryland would become the 10th state in addition to the District of Columbia. So while some employers, we do have good employers who voluntarily offer paid family and medical leave, the vast majority do not, hence the need for this legislation. It's been well established the benefits of paid leave, providing new parents with paid time care off for newborn or recently adopted children. I could go on. My chairman has done a great job of describing the benefits. Paid leave benefits. It has been described, this bill has been described as an anti-business bill. We had many small business owners come before who do this already. It is not anti-business. It helps improve retention and productivity and boosting labor force participation. This program is quite popular. I do want to say, Madam Speaker, thank you for your support and leadership in making sure this measure moved forward. To my chairman for defending this measure and making sure it is the best policy that we could put out. Thank you,
Madam Speaker.
To my predecessor from Montgomery County,
Okay, your
who has
time
moved
is
this
up.
as well.
Young
For all
man.
the reasons that I mentioned, Madam
Your
Speaker,
time
I
is
vote
up.
green.
Okay.
The House to do so as well.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you,
Explain
Madam
his
Speaker.
vote. 2
Yeah, to
minutes.
explain my vote just in 30 seconds, and I completely understand, of course, the point of the bill, and I think a lot of us agree that we want to help as much as we can. I looked at an old pay stub. I saw not one tax that comes out on my paycheck, not 2, not 3, but 4. We don't need a 5th. I pledge not to vote for taxes as the good delegate from Eastern, tax increases, I should say. As the good delegate from Eastern Shore said, this is over $1 billion tax increase. It's hard to deny that, so therefore I'm voting no. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman, Montgomery County. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm proudly voting green on this bill. I'm voting green on this bill because in 2017 I was diagnosed with lymphoma, and my wife was able to take time off from her job to take care of me through 4 rounds of chemotherapy. I'm voting green on this bill because I was able to take time off when my son was born, and that's a huge reason why we're so connected now. I'm voting green on this bill because study after study says that when fathers take time off with paid leave, they remain involved in their child's life, which is good for both the child and for the other parent. I'm voting green on this bill because paid leave is popular. Even a majority of Republicans say that they support paid leave even if they have to pay a little bit more. And most of all, Madam Speaker, I'm voting green because this morning my son, who's 3 years old, came in my bedroom and woke me up, gave me a big hug, and said, "Daddy, you're my best friend." And I'm voting green because I want every single father in Maryland to feel how good that feels. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Howard. Gentleman from Howard.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will explain my vote. I don't think I can top that. It was my birthday last week, so I won't bring that up. Okay, so I too agree with the point of this bill in the sense that we need to take care of our families. We need to take care of those men and women who take care of not only their kids, themselves, and are also caregivers. But I think it's a false choice to say that we need to burden our employers as much as we are in not doing a study first. It was brought up before, and I'll bring it up again. We passed a bill 2 weeks ago, 93 to 36, that I was proud to vote for, which created a study to do this right. If it is important to do it, it's important enough to do it right. This is why I'm voting no. I think we should support the House's version of this. We should tell our Senate colleagues that the House did it right. We should study this problem. We should do it right for all Marylanders, all business owners. I'm voting red. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm voting red because the study would have allowed us to look at the administration of this bill. There's been a lot of comparison from state to state. And some of that's correct, but some of those states offer 8 weeks. Some of those states offer this through private insurance carrier. And based on the settled legislation that left this floor, we would have been able to take a look at that. But instead, we've decided to move forward with a $1.5 billion bill standing up 100 people at DLLR that have problems keeping up with the unemployment insurance. So for all those reasons, I'm voting red. Thank you.
Gentleman from Calvert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my vote, I oppose Senate Bill 275 because Senate Bill 275 treats the small HVAC company in Calvert County with 15 employees the same way as Lockheed Martin with thousands of employees. We call that regulatory capture. Some on your side of the aisle are trying to make this into an employer-employee issue. It's not. It's interesting. This is actually an employer, large employer versus small employer issue. Because bills like this, through regulatory capture, make it harder for small businesses not only to survive, not only to start up, but to ever to grow. And that's why when I heard my good friend from Talbot County talk about this particular bill, I know that he owns a restaurant. My brother owns 2 restaurants. With all of the issues that have occurred through this pandemic, and then seeing this particular bill go through, how does a restaurant survive if half of the people avail themselves of this benefit? They can't. They cannot. How does the HVAC company in Calvert County with 15 employees survive if half of its employees avail themselves of this benefit? They cannot. But Lockheed Martin will be just fine. They're fine. So this bill actually is collapsing the small businesses and at the same time making big businesses bigger. That's really bad policy. It's called regulatory capture. And so please, please look at this regulatory capture issue as it should be looked at, and that is a tax on employers and a way to make small employers just crushed under the weight of this kind of tax and regulation, and at the same time losing those employees to the point where they're actually out of business. And you can say, well, how are they out of business? If you have 15 employees, they're out of business. That's how. That's why I'm voting no. Thank you.
Speaker.
The Chair, Health, Government, Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In a body where we hear from so many so often about how much we care about babies and how much we care about mothers and families, today is a chance to demonstrate that as opposed to talk about it. This bill demonstrates that this body cares about babies, children, families. For that reason, I'm voting green.
Speaker.
Gentleman from Hartford in Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, I'm voting red on this bill, and I do care about mothers, and I do care about babies. And I was just talking to the good delegate next to me because we came in the same time, and she's much younger than me, but to have said that, that's, you know, I'm on the floor of the House, I'm allowed to. Anyway, you know what? I want mothers to stay home with their babies, but this is just one more cut that makes mothers go out and get jobs. That's the society, that's the world that we now live in. As a government body, we're making heat more expensive, gasoline more expensive, food more expensive, and there's only one way that you're now going to feed your family now, especially if you're middle income. You better both work. And when I grew up, that wasn't the case. If my mother had to stay in bed, she could, because she didn't have to work, because it was a different world, a different society. I guess those lawmakers cared more than we do. This is about how much money can we put in the government coffers. Because if you think this bill is going to help, it's not going to. When it's not enough money, they're going to reach in the pockets and take even more money away from those people who wish they could stay home with their family. But they can't because bills are too high, taxes are too high, and we, this body, are creating that problem. So I'm proudly voting red so that one day we can go back in the world that I grew up in, not this world we live in now. Thank you.
Chairman of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm voting green on this bill. I don't raise my daughters to marry doctors. I raise them to be doctors. The goal of this bill, one of my major goals of this bill, was because of the workforce depletion. The pandemic had people recognize they'd rather stay home and be with their family because they felt it was a sacrifice. My goal of this bill was to incentivize individuals to join the workforce. And let's be honest, Women are breadwinners, but they're also caretakers, and they should not be penalized for either. I don't want to go back to the day where women didn't work, because they're the ones who are going to discover the cure for cancer, all of those things. I need them working, but I need them happy, and I want them to have that time with their family. So for all those reasons, I am voting green on this bill. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the call. There being 90 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 275, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Just a vote change, please. SB 862 to red. Thank you.
Introduction of House Bill during last 35 days of session. Recognizing a gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Why is this bill late?
Why is this bill late? So the Natural Resources article allows the Department of the Environment to direct the Maryland Environmental Service to take over a failing wastewater treatment plant. They have executed that authority earlier this week, and this bill was drafted in response to that action. This bill simply puts in place some reporting requirements so that the public and the community understand what's going on. And with that, I would beg the indulgence of the body that this bill be considered.
Shall the bill be introduced? Requires 94 votes. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 votes in the affirmative, the bill will be introduced. Clerk will read the bill and the committee assignment.
House Bill 1487, Delegate Grammer, House Rules.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to motion to suspend the rules to re-refer the bill directly to committee.
No, we cannot do that. It's not in your
Withdraw the motion.
That ends the work at the desk. Committee announcements. Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will have a super quick vote immediately following this in the old House chamber.
Any other committee announcements?
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
Rules?
Rules?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, House Rules will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. virtually. House Rules, 9 a.m. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Which committee?
Not a committee. I was waiting to see if you were done with committee.
Okay. Any other committee announcements? Okay. And young lady, what is your purpose?
May I make a personal announcement as my legislator colleague did, if I may?
I don't know what you don't want. Yes, sure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Totally unplanned. It just so happened. I just wanted to introduce my youngest, Evan Valderrama Lobo, and her special friend, Maurice Mendoza.
Madam Speaker.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Quick indulgence, if the body would look up to the gallery, you'll see my lovely wife and County Executive, Danielle. Thank you.
And are there any caucus announcements? Caucus announcements. And quorum call before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? The clerk will take the call. There being 126 members present, the House is still in session. Chair, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until Thursday, March 31st at 10 a.m., Legislative Day, March 24th.